Hi, I'm Nico and welcome to my channel. For today's video, we are going to be painting this 3D printed model from Chimeric Collective. Chimeric Collective is a website that is selling STLs of various mecha, aircraft, and diorama models of their original design. It also features a lore, which is really interesting to read about, so I suggest checking them out and links all down below. So in the Chimeric Collective website, there are various factions to choose from. This model right here is from the Ista faction. This one is called Nodachi, and I 3D printed it in a small scale, kind of like a miniature, but you can also have it 3D printed in 1:24 or 1:35 scale. If you want to see what the 1:35 scale model looks like, I have a video where I painted the Lictor, which is another one of Chimeric Collective's models. I will put the link down below for that video as well. So right now, I'm painting this model kind of like a miniature because I had it 3D printed in a smaller scale. So I wanted to do a lot of hand painting and not really do any airbrushing. But for the priming, which I did not show in this video, I used an airbrush. I primed it in black, then did zenithal priming with gray up to light gray. And then after that, I dry brushed white over it just to define the edges and the details before moving on and painting with speed paints and Vallejo model colors and game colors. Also, as you can see here, both of the shoulders and the top part, the head part, I added texture, kind of like a cast iron texture, using my Gemo UV putty, which I will do a review about soon. So now let's talk a little bit about the color scheme. So usually, whenever you plan out a color scheme, not just in Mecha or Gunpla models, it's better to use 3 or more colors because it's visually pleasing that way. Like for example, in Gunpla, in the RX-78-2, it uses what? Red, white, blue, yellow, and just that gray if you add the inner frame. So anyways, you should always kind of follow the rule, the 60, 30, and 10 rule. So 60% of your model should be the dominant color. In my case, the dominant color is the speed paint, the dark blue. And then 30% should be the secondary color, which in my case, I'm thinking it's the light blue. And then 10% should be the accent. So that is the gray parts of my model. So basically, I'm just finishing up the model, hand painting all of the other hand painted parts, all of the gray areas, all of the tubes, the details, the joints, and stuff like that before moving on to the weathering. So if you've been a subscriber of mine or you've watched 1 or 2 of my videos, you might notice that I always do a weathered build. Like I very rarely do a clean build for a personal project, because I just really love weathering. And I feel like a Gunpla or a Mecha, a robot that big, is not always clean. Like especially if it's outdoors or it's just been in battle, it should have at least paint chipping. So obviously for this model, I decided that it would look much better with a little bit of weathering. So the very first thing that you do when you weather a Gunpla or a model kit is to add the paint chipping. Like that's the first stage of weathering. And usually you can stop at paint chipping if you like the look already and you don't have to add any of the washes, the rust textures, and stuff like that. But anyways, with paint chipping, I usually do 2 techniques. Like I do the sponge technique and follow that up with a paintbrush. So the sponge technique offers me the freedom to do like spots and random textures on the model itself. And it's a fast way to add chipping to your model. While the paintbrush helps me add streaking and a lot of more refined and makes the chipping look a lot more better. Like if you scratch the edge of a model, it's obviously gonna have a line of chipping, so that's what the paintbrush helps me to do. So I combine those two to get a more realistic and a much more better paint chipping. Plus, I also use two colors when I do paint chipping. I always use a light gray or a dark gray depending on the base color. For this one, I used a light gray, a pale gray blue, and then I always use hull red, which is kind of like a rust texture, a rust color. So the hull red, I use that slightly less than the light gray or the gray. And I also do the sponge technique and the brush technique for the hull red. So using two colors for my paint chipping also gives me a more in-depth and more realistic paint chipping. So once the paint chipping is done and I'm happy with the result, I follow it up by applying a little bit of rust texture on the edges of the model. So if you don't know, rust texture is a special effects paint that resembles real life rust. So to blend that out into the model itself, I use a lot of washes. So washes really just help make the model look a lot more detailed because it offers discoloration and just makes it look and feel heavy and worn out, which is exactly what you want because that makes your model look a lot more realistic and have depth. So once I'm happy with the result of the model itself, I ended up doing a simple base to go along with it. This is simply made by using a mold, a brick mold, and then using air dry clay. Then I painted it simply with speed paints and some pigments, and this is what I came up with. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing this model. It was a fun and quick process. I really loved the design itself. And I think the color scheme that I chose for it went well with the model itself. So yeah, it's really a nice looking model. So if you want to grab one of your own, or if you want to browse through the other Chimeric Collective models, please do so by clicking the link down below. Painting this model is definitely a nice change from doing Gunpla, and to all of the Gunpla builders out there that are a little bit intimidated by hand painting, I really suggest getting a model, a Chimeric Collective model, and practicing your hand painting on it. So yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye!